Well, I've got to share this, haven't I? I met my husband at networking. Yeah, I mean, what greater story could I, lead with? And honestly, I think we've got 3 or 4 couple members as well, haven't we, that met at networking as well. So, and it is a really business and life, business and personal intertwined. They don't balance. I get sick of people trying to tell you that they don't. One will always outbalance the other. That's fine. So when you're spending so much time of your personal time in a business space, to meet your husband in that area is like, that's amazing, isn't it? Because we get to share that experience. And I did pour coffee all over him because I really fancied him. I got really embarrassed. But that's the greatest story for me. But, if you think about other things, if I look over the 8 years that we've run ONLE, our best friends have come from ONLE.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Leading with Integrity. And this is a very special episode this week because I have not 1, not 2, but 3 guests all at once, all in the virtual studio together. Now that is a first for me. We've had a few episodes over the years where there's compilations and dozens of guests, but they were never in the room all at once. So this is testing my hosting skills today. I think we got through it okay. There was definitely no wrangling required and it didn't get challenging. No, it didn't. It was fine. It was lovely. Anyway, so those 3 guests are Kelly and James West and Kierney Chase. They are the founding team of ONLE Networking. We'll be hearing more about what ONLE does. That's ONLE, not with a Y like the traditional spelling. It's an online networking community for business owners, like-minded people who like people. So there's obvious alignment with Leading with Integrity being all about people-first leadership. We'll be talking about their business, their journey so far, what the benefits of networking can be, why you should be doing it, both as a leader, as a business owner, and the leadership lessons they've all learned along their journey so far. So as we've got so many more guests than I'm used to, the format may be a little bit different. We will, of course, still have leadership heroes at the end, so that will remain familiar. Aside from that, it's a bit more of a relaxed conversation. So I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you learn from their experience. And if you'd like to learn more about them, perhaps attend one of their meetings. They have many in the UK, a few in the US as well. Do check the show notes or listen to the end or drop me a message and I can send you some details. Highly recommend giving it a try though. It's the best networking event that I have found in my career so far. In fact, it's so good that I've stopped looking for others. And if you're here because you're looking for leadership lessons, leadership insight, a place to develop your skills as a leader without fear of judgment or recrimination, then you're in the right place. And another right place could be the Integrity Leaders community. Because stepping into leadership, especially in a technical environment, can feel isolating. It can feel high pressure. It can make you doubt yourself. Leading with Integrity, this podcast, and Integrity Leaders, the community, exist to surround new leaders with shared experiences, practical guidance, and a trusted peer network so you can grow into the confident, capable leaders that you wish you'd had, and preferably do so faster and without losing your identity in the process. More on that at my website. It's leadingwithintegrity.co.uk. That link is in the show notes. It's also on the screen for anyone watching the video version. So do pay us a visit, hit that green button when you're ready, and come and join us at Integrity Leaders. Now let's welcome this week's many, many guests onto the show and get into another conversation about great leadership and, in this case, networking.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Well, it's a landmark episode today. I have not just 2, but 3 guests at once, and they're all from the wonderful world of ONLE Networking. So, Kelly, James, Kierney, welcome to Leading with Integrity. It's lovely to finally get you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you for all coordinating the diaries, because I know it took a lot of logistics, that. So
we've had to close the business, but at least we're here.
We're here.
You flipped the sign round, so it's closed now. Yeah?
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, to start us off, this is usually the bit where I push the guest in at the deep end, but there's three of you. So who wants to go first? Tell us a bit about your background, your story so far, your career journeys, your business, what you do today, why you do it, things like that.
James, we'll nominate you. Go for it.
Perfect.
There's a lot of questions in
I know.
there, wasn't it?
It's good, that, isn't it? Now I can just be lazy for a bit.
So way back in the day, what happened? Well, no, I suppose I am the first one, aren't I? Because I went self-employed at 25 and went networking to get business. And then via that networking attendance, I eventually met Kelly. We met at a networking event. And because networking was so intrinsic to my building business, I was a freelance writer. That was after we then met, that was really a consideration of what do we want to do to earn money? And we built websites for a while. But the bit that we loved and thought was untapped was networking, even though it's fairly well known. But as a percentage adoption for small businesses, it's still, I think, quite undervalued. I think a lot of people are put off by networking. But yeah, I mean, previous to that, I was a journalist. I edited really boring IT magazines. They were the sort of titles that would have been mocked on Have I Got News for You? You remember that segment? Customer service news and things like that I used to do. And yeah, that's me. Kelly, you take up the story.
What he said, but I wasn't a journalist. So I worked in travel before I met James. And yeah, my first sort of foray into business ownership was as a franchise owner of travel counsellors. So, which was quite different. It still sort of felt like you were working for someone else, I think. So really my true immersion into business ownership was obviously meeting James, doing the websites initially, and then obviously ONLE. And I think this is probably the first time, I don't know, James, if you would agree with this, where it feels like I'm going to say proper business. That's not to belittle what we did before, but people rely on us, or we have to be in certain places at certain times, and there's a bit more structure around it. So I feel like our journey is definitely over the last 10 years, it just keeps going up those rungs of the ladder, doesn't it, James?
Absolutely. Where did you arrive in this, Kierney? You are related to us as well.
I am.
Are we related?
Yeah, by marriage.
Yeah.
I had to figure that out then. Well, that's sort of why I'm here, isn't it? Yeah, I've never had a proper job, I suppose, straight out of college. I was more, yay! I was more involved in the website builds and that side of what we were doing. And then, at the time that we kind of needed to focus on ONLE and chose to pursue that forward, we needed someone to take a bigger role in that business. And then I sort of filled that role. But yeah, I did all sorts of different things kind of coming out of college, as you do. But this is my first proper job. I will say that it's proper. So always been in this space. Didn't probably grow up thinking I'd be leading a community of, business networking professionals, but here we are and I love it.
Yeah, I think it's good. I'm sort of envious that you've not had a proper job because you've not had any of those nasty experiences that so many of the rest of us have had.
I've had some, interesting jobs. I've worked at McDonald's. I've done things like that. So not massive roles like that.
Yeah, lovely. And so, I mean, there's so many things we could pick out in this. I think the journalism angle is really interesting, James. I'd love to hear more about what drew you to that, and do you miss it as well?
Being a journalist?
Yeah.
Well, the honest answer is, and this is really embarrassing, isn't it? Why did you want to become a journalist? I got an interview at, I think it was called the London School of Printing, which was one of only 5 universities in the country. This would have been in the mid-90s that had a journalism degree. Because if you think about it, journalism is a vocational thing, not vacational. Vocational, get that button right, as a journalist. It doesn't lend itself to academic study. Therefore, there were only 5 places that did it. So I got an interview at London School of Printing, which was one of the best of 5. And on the interview, one of the questions I asked you, what was the thing, or what's the film or fictional representation of journalism that drew you to want to become a journalist? And of course, now I'd say something around like All the President's Men, or like something a little bit more deep. And I just said Spider-Man. because I wanted to be Spider-Man, and he worked on the newspaper, and that was my main thing. But no, I was good at writing. That was the only thing that I was good at. I was good at writing, and I wanted to do that. So, what was your question? How did I get into that? So I did a degree in it. I then worked for a Fowler Little Publishers in Southampton, and as I say, boring subjects. It was B2B, IT, CRM, that kind of stuff. But it was what was great about it is that I got to experience all of business, not just being a reporter. I met a lot of journalists over the years who effectively sat in a corner or went out and reported, and they wrote stuff. Whereas because we were a small publisher and it was all commercially driven, so I had a very good grounding kind of pragmatic view of business, not, because it was great to, think I want to write this, but it had to be tempered against the needs of the advertisers. It wasn't all advertorial, but, you have to kind of balance those things off. And I just had to get involved in everything: advertising, page layout, running a business, selling. Sales was a big part of what we had to do. So it gave me a very good grounding for when I went into business for myself. Because you'll probably see this, David. I think a lot of people struggle when they set up a business. They've done their job within a business, but other people do other parts of the business. What was your background in that? Have you?
Sort of similar and sort of not. So I kind of had a similar experience in terms of being able to experience lots of different parts of the business, because I've always worked in small companies. I think the biggest I ever worked in was 40 people. And I was the last one before I started doing this. So when you're in that sort of small business environment, there aren't many people to do stuff. So everyone ends up doing 3 or 4 things, as the 3 of you probably know, I'm sure. But then I also had the opposite experience too, because there was one thing I never ever touched, which was sales and marketing, because it never interested me. But when you set up your own business and you're the only one working in it, you kind of have to do that or figure out how to do that, at least at the beginning, because you can't afford to pay someone to do it at that stage. So yeah, I sort of had both ends of that.
And it's interesting, some of the skills that transfer, isn't it? For me, training to be a journalist, and people think it's about being clever with language, and it's not. It's about being economical. It's why the who, what, when, where, why in the first paragraph thing works so well. And unbeknownst to us back then, you were taught to write that way because you had to get the information across in the shortest amount of time in case they sold an advert and had to edit from the bottom of the column. That was literally what it was. So the first paragraph had to stand alone as a meaningful piece of information. So you tried to get who, what, when, where, why into it. Well, we leap forward to 2026. Content is all about the headline, and it's about telling people why they should read something, not just what they're going to read. So those skills of kind of economy of language were really, for me, what was built into what I'd always done from journalism, is put me in good stead. Because if you in 2026 can't concisely and quickly impart your value, you're in trouble. And so many people, don't they? We all see, Kierney, Kelly, we see this all the time, don't we? If you say to them, well, tell me about you, what makes you unique, or what's different about your business? People go, oh. It's difficult though, isn't it? Yeah, where is that value?
In fact, I probably did that yesterday, today, tomorrow. Yeah.
We get this with sales, don't we, Kelly? What can we say this quite clearly, don't we? What can I buy from you in one-to-ones, and what typical response do you get?
Oh, depends.
What
that
do
was
you
me,
want?
though. What about other people?
Yeah.
It's difficult because you're not used to having that question, because most people see the sales as like an uphill struggle to convince people and get over their objections, all this sort of thing. So that is quite an unusual question, I think, in my experience.
What, to ask someone that, what can I buy from you?
I think so.
But as networkers, we need to know that, don't we? Because if I can't buy from you, I definitely can't refer you. And at that stage, I'm not sure how you're going to make a sale. Because no one knows what they can buy. And, it feels a bit unkind, doesn't it? Because the real answer is, I'll have a conversation with you, I'll ascertain your requirements, then I'll build you a proposal. That's what people mean when they respond that way. But again, Kelly, do the menu thing, that analogy, because that's helpful here.
Oh, yeah. So like going into a restaurant, I mean, there's too much choice, isn't there? So if you go into a restaurant and there's, nothing on the menu, or the odd
one,
or it didn't even have one, you wouldn't go in, would you? Because you'd be outside and you'd be thinking, I don't really know how much that's going to cost, or it looks a bit expensive. I'll just go somewhere else and find someone that is going to tell me that stuff. It's the same, isn't it, in business? If you can't tell people what your offerings are, some people are not going to ask. They're going to go somewhere else and they're going to find somebody that has got that on display, because it just makes life a lot easier. So, yeah, it's a good analogy.
Yeah. So there's a phenomenon, I think, with websites. They went through a phase, didn't they? Particularly like coach and service type websites, where used to be the price was there and you knew what you're getting into, so you had that menu. And they went through this phase, and I don't know if we're still in it or we're coming out of it, where nobody has prices on their website anymore. It's book a call, have a conversation, fill in the form, give me your email address so I can spam you for 6 months before I talk to you, and all that sort of thing. And I find that as a customer really frustrating. But then having experimented as a coach a little bit, I see why people do it, because you want to have the conversation first. But yeah, I don't know.
It's a tough one. I think that will always cycle. I think that will.
One of the most interesting things about that phenomena that you've just described there, David, the better you come across, so the better job you do with your marketing, your video, your content, your brand, the people will assume they then can't afford you. You are penalised for being good if you don't advertise prices, because, again, I'm sure you get this as well, Kierney, where you have conversations with people and go, you push them on that, and they go, oh, well, I do an hour, or I'll do like a little workshop for £100. And you go, sorry? What, like, oh yeah, I'd sit with you and I'd do a little report and I'd delve into a little bit about that problem for £200. And you go, why aren't you talking about that? Like, because at least at that point, that feels affordable, it's referable. Are we meant to even be talking about this?
Not really, but you seem quite passionate.
Yeah. It's all good.
I'm going to stop talking for a minute.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you carry on. I think we're probably moving into an area that's relevant in this next question anyway, isn't it? Which is about like the most important lessons you've learned from going into business, from running your company. But I feel like before we do that, we should talk a bit more about ONLE, because we obviously know what it is, and we're assuming that the listeners do as well, and a lot of them probably don't. So in a nutshell, like, give us your, what's the phrase? Elevator pitch? No, I hate that. But your quick description of the company, like what it is, what it does, why you do it.
I'll go, shall I? There we go. Aren't we polite?
Awkward silence.
We are polite. So we're ONLE Networking. We're the business network for people who like people. That's the official strapline. Sounds really lovely. Sounds really twee, really important, because ultimately you're not going to give business to somebody that you don't like. So we provide a platform for business owners, business leaders to come together, meet other wonderful people and network completely online. We do nothing in person. So that's a range of regional meetings, member-only meetings, and different ways to engage. We do education as well. We have masterclass, don't we? So it's like I would say, ONLE Networking is becoming more like the ONLE community, but networking is what people understand. And it very much is a space for business owners, business leaders to come together and be on that business journey together, and then also see where there's opportunities to collaborate or refer business to each other. Fair enough, I would say. Yeah.
Lovely.
And there's 400 of us across the UK, US and Ireland.
Yeah. Recently passed that milestone, I believe.
Yes.
So yeah, congratulations again. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was a really good and not at all rehearsed, I'm sure, answer to that question.
I've said it a few times.
Yeah. So, I mean, having been a member of ONLE for a few years now, I've lost count of how many, which means I've been having fun, definitely.
Good.
I think what I really love about it is exactly that, as you've said, it's that community aspect, but it's also, it's quite different to any other networking things I've tried in the past. And we won't mention any names.
No.
But everyone knows who we're talking about, probably. And I think one of the big differences, at least in the ones that I've done outside of ONLE, which are few and far between, if I'm honest, because I found the one I like, so I keep doing it. But it's the different types of meetings you do. So you have like your home group. You can visit any other groups you want. There's also like the 123. There's the everyone. There's what's the film and TV one called? I can't remember.
Agent Screen.
There you go. I could have guessed that, couldn't I? Yeah.
Well.
But I like that variety, and it's all within the same membership as well. So yeah, really like that.
Thank you, baby.
Yeah. Moving on to the question then. Most important lesson you've learned from being in business. And I think we should do reverse order this time. So Kierney can go first. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, good job I knew the questions ahead of time. Otherwise, I would be a bit. Most important lesson, obviously not as much time I've had in business, but I've learned a lot along the way. Crash course type style. I think for me is that there's something to learn from everyone. Starting out, we started out as an in-person network. So I was in the networking room from 16 years old, straight out of school. And for me, dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of what can I add to this room? What am I even doing here? I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing here. How do you have a conversation? All of these really daunting people to talk to. But I very quickly realized that the core skill, and it is a skill because not everybody can do it, and there is a certain way to do it, but being curious, leading with questions, just the ability to have a conversation, that's crucial. And if you're curious about people, you can always learn something about someone's experience or, the way that they've built their business and the lessons that they've learned. So I think, you're not always getting positive lessons, but there's still stuff to take away from negative experiences that people have had. And yeah, I'm just a sponge in that space. So yeah, listening to what people have been up to and learning from their experiences.
Yeah, we're going to talk about leadership later, but you've hit on something that I think is really important for leadership as well. And it's that curiosity and leading with questions and not being afraid to look a bit silly sometimes if you don't know the answer and all that sort of stuff, which, really important for leadership too. But enough about me. Kelly.
I think for me, it is remembering the highs and the lows. Like, I think people genuinely believe being a business owner is easy, and it really isn't. I'd say the business owners that make it are the most resilient people you'll meet, because the lows are normally, and I don't mean to sound negative here, but there's more lows in business than there are highs, I would say. And it's about how many times you can go through those lows, knowing that a high's coming, how long that's going to be there for, and just really enjoying the ride in both spaces, because it's not easy. You do have to wear many hats, and it's it's a resilience journey for me. And just remembering that, particularly when you're maybe in some of your lowest times and it feels easy to go, oh, forget this, or go and do something else. We've all had those moments. Oh, I'll go and work for somebody else. It can be their problem. And then you very quickly remember, hang on a minute, why would I do that? There's a reason I've set out on this journey myself. So it's just having that faith and that consistency, I think, and just knowing that you're on the right path, and the lows and the highs will all come.
Yeah, resilience is kind of the word of our times, I feel like, especially the last sort of 7 years or so, for obvious reasons. Yeah, but very important, definitely.
Okay.
And last but not least, James.
I haven't got any resilience. I think my version of it is like just grit your teeth and sort of scream a bit, isn't it?
I mean, that's a kind of resilience, I suppose.
Endure.
Yeah.
Two main lessons for me from business. I think people probably overlook the very simple. It's a business cliche, but supply and demand. What do people need? What do they want to buy? And is it still the same as it was last week? I think if you can't adapt to requirements of business, I think there's a real problem at the moment that people are sat behind screens churning out different messaging. I mean, these days it's so easy. And go to chat and type something in and you can get some pretty clean, probably quite, it's not bad. It's not badly thought out. It's based on your input and a kind of broad consensus of nothing. Whereas networking for me was always so valuable because it's the finger on the pulse stuff. It's the real time feedback. If I say this thing and people are blank faced, maybe I want to change it. Maybe I want to ask why that doesn't resonate. Because what resonates when you're sat at your computer and makes sense, if it doesn't work, you're not going to get that by pushing out another blog, website, social media post. So picking up supply and demand. And then the other thing, and I'm going to cover this a little bit later with my inspiring leader, but I'm going to touch on this now. Don't burn bridges with people, which could also read as another cliche. Just respect everyone that you meet, irrespective of how you perceive how valuable they are to you. And I got a really good lesson in this, David, when I worked for the magazines, and I stayed till the bitter end, and then the internet came along and I had no job one day. And I was there when the receivers turned up and said, "You don't have a job, go home." And unlike a lot of the journalists who were full of themselves and treated a lot of the PR and marketing people as second-class citizens, there were horror stories of PR. It was mostly, sorry to say it, but it was back then, girls, the young girls in PR crying because the editors of the magazines had been so horrible to them because they were on a power trip. And it's not in my nature to treat people that way. I treated people well. So when I suddenly didn't have a job, guess what happened? I was able to put in some calls to some of those marketing contacts and they gave me work. I was a freelance journalist the day after I was out of work. And that don't burn bridges, because you never know when the contact's going to become valuable. That's one that I've really stood by. It's really valuable for networking, because we tend to write people off, don't we? What's yours, David?
Can I just have all of yours?
There were some good ones there, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, don't burn the bridges is really, really important one. I think particularly in the networking context, as you say, like a lot of people, it's rare that I have that experience, but I definitely have had it where as soon as they realise you can't really help them, they lose interest in the conversation. You can see they've lost interest, like the body language changes and everything. So that's definitely an important one. In career management, I don't know, I mean, depends how bad it gets, I suppose. I definitely burned some bridges. but I mean, one could argue they set their side of it on fire first and I just joined in. But yeah, I think your first lesson as well, I think everyone who's a business owner has probably done that at least once, because we start a business to do a thing because that is the thing we care about. That's our idea. That's what we're excited about. And we get so carried away with it. Often we don't check if anyone actually wants to buy it. And if they do, like what it needs to do and what it should look like until too late sometimes. I've definitely done that a couple of times as well. So I think, that one would probably be my most important business lesson actually, is get user customer feedback and do it as early as you can.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. Just stole yours. I know. I'm okay with it.
That's all right. Just edit my bit out.
That's a good idea. I could do that, couldn't I? Yeah. I won't. No, that'd be unethical.
I had two
probably.
anyway, so you could just chop that.
Yeah, but you started by saying you've got two, so that I can edit that out as well. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
We'll go with it. Yeah. Networking, we've been talking about it anyway, but I want to talk about it more because it's something that for most of my career, like I actively avoided it. I had to be kicked, pushed, shoved out the door to go and do it when I was working for other people. And then when I became a solopreneur, I didn't really have a choice. Like if you want to meet people, and especially in the COVID years, the sanity was being tested. It was nice to talk to people. And it's something now that I absolutely love it. Like I can't imagine not doing it in my business or otherwise. Like even if the worst happens and I have to fold and go and get a job, I'd probably keep going with the networking. So my question is, I guess, what are some of your favourite networking stories or experiences? And you can decide who goes first this time.
Awkward silence. Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on then. Again, yeah.
I'll volunteer. I can't. This is weird because I feel like it's one of those things where there's so many I can't pinpoint one specific sort of example, but as a sort of collective, something that has become a favourite is connecting with people over the world. The world is a very, very small place nowadays. I can one week talk to someone in America, someone in Malaysia, Australia, and then next door. Like it's crazy the people that you're talking to. And especially now that I head up one of our US groups. So I've made not more of an effort, but more of a concerted sort of focus to grow my US connections. But I think it's that thing of bringing people together from overseas, maybe people that didn't think their business could go overseas, or they didn't envision themselves having clients who were abroad. And yeah, those sorts of connections are very powerful for me because it's almost like you see that light bulb go, I didn't know that I could do that. That's pretty amazing. What other opportunities are out there? But aside from that, my favourite connections to make and the stories that come out of them are just the connections that are based on personality matches that become friendships, partnerships, people that create businesses together. Like that's just gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Like it's so magical to connect good people, but you only do that when you're in the room with good people. So that would be my favourite.
Yeah, that is cool, I have to say. And I think ONLE's very good at getting the right people in the room together as well, I would add. So I need to stop blowing your trumpets for you, don't I? Like,
that's fine. We don't mind. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I think I'll jump in here because I know you've got a nice little anecdote, Kelly, but just a continuation of that, David. I think it's really important to realise that networking is a force for business and personal development, irrespective of what one you go to. And I think, you did that typical thing earlier where like, we can't say BNI or we can't say another. It's not like like you're saying Voldemort, isn't it? It's such a weird thing. And I never really understood that because we all just doing the same thing in a slightly different way. That's all it is. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for BNI. But for me personally, I wouldn't have had a business if it wasn't for networking because I was this freelance writer. And when that work dried up, when I needed to actually build something repeatable with a new set of people that were buying into it, because you can't rely on your legacy contacts forever, networking was the gateway to that. So not just getting clients, but also understanding how to position it in a way that people wanted to buy it. That all came through networking. But the other side to it is the mental health side of it, because my mental health was awful. And I used to go networking, and this isn't overstating matters at all. It was a lifeline. It was the one time when I was in my very worst period of mental health where I felt myself. I felt like like a normal functioning human being. And it was only, much later that I realized that was because it gave me meaningful connection. I was sat on my own in a room doing work and I was earning money, but I'd lost meaningful connection. And when I went to networking, I could just have conversations with people doing the same sort of thing as me. Because all the people I knew that had jobs, I didn't relate to them in the same way. They were like, well, you're just sat at home all day now. Like, yeah, okay, well, you get paid to go on holiday. What? You're on different pathways, aren't you? So the mental health side of it, the ability to build a business. I think that not one individual story, but what I love about particularly what we've done with online networking is the small stories. Is we see a lot online. Extroverted people love in-person networking and they're very quick to rave about it because they're extroverted and they want to tell everyone this is where it's really at. This is how you really build connection. We have lots of conversations with people that are a little bit quieter, maybe a little bit more introverted. I'm reasonably extroverted, but I don't want all the historics of, meeting in person all the time. I like the connection side of it. So when we hear people say, do you know what? I hated in-person networking. I can't go to in-person networking because I've got childcare. I'm looking after a parent. I can't attend these events, but the fact that I can still be part of it and not feel excluded is huge to me because it's provided me, like I say, networking's valuable. We're just providing it in a different way. So I think it's those stories that you won't probably read about on LinkedIn, but they're happening all the time. It's just a demographic of people that wouldn't shout about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the mental health aspects and the introvert extrovert piece as well. I think there's parallels again. So it's something I know when I'm talking particularly to early career leaders who are struggling with things in their leadership journey, for example, is building networks. Even if it's like an internal network in your giant company where you work, start doing that early because you need that sort of supportive group who's maybe not getting their paycheck from the same place. I think that's important because you need, exactly from your story earlier as well, James, when your end of your journalism career and, start of a freelance career, I guess. So I think that's important. And the mental health aspect as well as business owners, particularly as solopreneurs, as a lot of us in ONLE are. And then during those COVID years where you don't have anyone to talk to. Okay, love my other half hugely. really love living with her and it's amazing. But at a certain point, when you've been in lockdown for like a year and you've only got one other person to talk to, you need other people to talk to, right? So, and then also someone who's going through that business journey as well, which she wasn't at the time. She sort of is now as a side gig. But yeah. So people who understand it and can have conversations about it, yes, these are the same challenges I'm having actually. Oh, well, how did you solve it? Well, I spoke to this person. And then you're into that referring piece, aren't you, around the networking as well. So anyway, I've been talking for too long again. Kelly, let's hear your lovely story.
Well, I've got to share this, haven't I? I met my husband at networking.
Oh, sorry, I said a lovely story.
No, love story.
I'm only joking.
I mean, what greater story could I, lead with? And honestly, I think we've got 3 or 4 couple members as well, haven't we, that met at networking as well. So, and it is a really business and life, business and personal intertwined. They don't balance. I get sick of people trying to tell you that they don't. One will always outbalance the other. That's fine. So when you're spending so much time, of your personal time in a business space, to meet your husband in that area is like, that's amazing, isn't it? Because we get to share that experience. And I did pour coffee all over him because I really fancied him. I got really embarrassed. But that's the greatest story for me. But, if you think about other things, if I look over the 8 years that we've run ONLE, our best friends have come from ONLE. Like, as we've moved, James is 50 in a couple of weeks. I'm 46. Like, we're midlife. Your friendship circles change. And it does start to become a little bit more, particularly I think when you're running your own business, it's really hard to have a conversation that has a normal job now for me. And I think when I do talk to somebody that has a paid job or is employed, they don't come at it with such passion as I do, because they don't live and breathe their job. Like, maybe massive umbrella statement here, but it's very quick. In my experience with the people that I speak to who are employed, I leave it when I leave the job and I come away, and now I'm not in the job, I'm not talking about the job. Whereas for business owners, it bleeds over into everything, doesn't it? Because it's your life and you're excited by it. So I think for James and myself, and even Kierney, our best friends are within the network that we've met in the last 8 years, because we share that journey together.
That's 2 pretty decent references there, I have to say. Well, I can't really argue with those, can I? Not that I would. So interesting though about talking to people in full-time jobs. And so I think, again, it makes me think about sort of this new prevalence of burnout that we've seen over the last few years as well. I think there's something there. I sort of had the opposite experience though. When I was full-time employed, I worked ridiculously longer hours. I was stressed about that work all the time. I was thinking about it all the time. But now that I'm a business of one and I'm on my own and I can set the agenda and so on, I'm pretty good at setting boundaries now. Like,
that's good.
I would 10 years ago, I would never in a million years have deleted emails off my phone, for example. Wow. I would never have not answered the phone after 5:30 again. Like, whereas now no, work's done now, do something else.
I think you're unusual in that space, which is great because you've got the boundaries. But yeah, it should be that way. That's why we go into business, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of the point, isn't it? You want to be able to control your lifestyle. Why else do it? I don't know. Yeah. Make money, I suppose, but money's not everything. Easy for me to say, I know. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about leadership. I'm trying not to look at the time. Oh, we're not doing badly. Yeah, we're on track. It's good. We're doing well. Right, best and worst experiences of leadership. Should we do worst first and get those out of the way, and then we'll come back to best? Yeah.
My answer's sort of involved, but I'll wait. I'll go second.
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I think it's James's turn to go first.
Well, we sort of nominated Kelly for this because I'm sort of here to learn about leadership, because all I can say about leadership is that I've never felt like I'm a leader. I mean, because maybe I've got a hang up that leadership means hierarchy. You know, the 3 of us work in the same space. I hope, I don't think I act as if I'm some kind of next tier to Kierney, for example. I think we talk as equals. So maybe that is my best experience, is that it's not this notion of I've got to make people do things. I think it's just everyone mucks in. I always remember Ben Jury talking about the cultural marker of like everyone here makes the tea. Like, I like that. You know, there's no one that's bigger than someone else that wouldn't make the tea. I kind of like that. So I don't feel like, other than that kind of lead by example, I'll roll my sleeves up, wouldn't expect anyone to do something that I wouldn't do. Like, I don't really know what leadership is. I shouldn't be on this podcast. I'm a fraud.
We all learn something. There you go. That's what it is.
I had to smile because it's funny how you said, I just try to treat everyone like colleagues, because in my experience, that's what the best leaders do. Okay. And I do also love the tea making example. That's a great indicator of a culture. Having worked for someone who not only would refuse to make tea for his guests, but would walk past an entire row of desks until he found the most junior person, sadly, most junior woman in his case, and asked them to make the tea, even though it wasn't their job and they had other things to do. Yeah, that's a real indicator of culture. There's a big red flag in that.
Yeah, definitely. Turns out that was the best answer you could have given, James.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Pretty good. And you mentioned lead by example as well. That's my favourite kind of leadership. Tick. Yep. I think you're doing well.
Okay. I'll chip
David.
in, shall I? So I think probably my example encapsulates both the best and the worst. And for me, so personal experience, as being somebody that manages a group of franchise owners within our business, so obviously it's my job to lead by example for them, I've really struggled to find how to best split my time. Now, I'm going to use the wrong words here. I'm going to use best and worst, but I don't mean it like that. When you've got a group of 12 people, some are going to perform better than others. There's always going to be top performers and the lower performers. It doesn't matter what demographic of people you bring. Somebody will be number 1, somebody will be number 12. And for me, it is understanding how to best boundary my time, me personally, and split that, not equally, because it wouldn't need to be done equally, but when I first started that role, it would be focusing on the people towards the lower end of the scale and making sure they were happy, but then completely taking my eye off the ball with the people that were doing well, not really asking for anything, and then them feeling like they're not being looked after, and then going back up to that end and going, oh, yeah. And then it's the same people in the middle that get none of it because you've just bypassed them whichever way you go. So I think for me, the best form of leadership is when you feel like you've got everybody singing from the same page, singing from the same hymn sheet. And it doesn't matter of the status of where that person is, they feel like they're being supported. They feel like they've got the tools that they need and that you're there for them, regardless of their number on the table. The worst for me is seeing that fragmented, trying to help, being frustrated because people don't see it the same way as I do. They're not going to, are they? Because they're not me. And having to understand and learn what people need as individuals. But I think the biggest thing for me is I'm very heart on sleeve. I'm a massive people pleaser. Too much in the leadership space, probably because I become very close to the people that I lead. And whilst I love that, you just need to be mindful of the boundaries that you put in place when you're putting yourself in that place, because it's 12 people, it's okay. When it's 24 people, you've then got 24 best friends and you're trying to sort them all out together, you know. So I think for me, it is that one end to the other and the bouncing between the two.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said understanding what each individual needs.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what the really great leaders do. They can see the individual. They can recognize that it's not one size fits all, that I'm not just going to, that leadership is I do this. It's more leadership is what does each of those people need? It's not I, it's we. And yeah, I mean, there's loads of cliches there, aren't there? We could probably go for a half an hour just listing cliches, but I think they're cliches for a reason sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, last but not least.
Well, present company excluded, of course. Best example of leadership that I've got. Well, going back to that point of not really having a proper job, I think the only example that I can really draw from is the tutors that I had in college. I didn't have a fantastic experience in college. And I think as I've grown up and matured, and, that was 10 years ago now, which is quite scary, thinking about that experience and what made it negative for me and what I didn't like, it was that we had to follow a certain pathway. So for context, I did an art course. It was a foundation level to go to university. And when I applied for the course, I said, I have no interest in going to university. I just want to kind of explore art. I'd never done it before. Is that going to be a problem? No, it's not. That's fine. Okay, I'll do the course. The whole course was a step-by-step guide to building your portfolio, applying for universities, how to go about the interviews, funding all of your different art supplies to get you to that point. And it was that was a real lesson for me in articulating, probably at the start, and standing up for myself and going, I really don't want to do this. Is this going to be a problem? And then throughout that course going, actually, you weren't honest when I first applied for this course. It was very close-minded, the whole experience. And actually, the result of that, I lost a lot of my creativity in that course because it was so tunnel visioned in, this is a certain way that you've got to do it. We don't accept anything else. We don't want ideas outside of the box. That's not, talk about the epitome of what that's supposed to be. So that was probably my worst experience, but I learned so much about how I want to conduct myself kind of from that point. So I guess it was a positive as well.
Yeah, I can see that. There's a bit there about, it's a great leadership lesson as well about expectations and communication. And I had a guest a few months back, might have been before Christmas actually, I've lost track of time again, and he's trying to reset this idea of expectation management and turn it into actually have agreements, not expectations. Because an expectation is one-sided. Like a leader or the follower can have an expectation of what the other is going to do, and the other can be completely oblivious to that, have no idea. And then when it goes wrong and it's not been delivered, and someone goes, "Hang on, I thought we're not." No, oh. Whereas an agreement, both sides know what it is and have agreed. Hence the word agreement, right? So there's a lot more clarity in the way that works. So his name was Jay Williams. If anyone wants to look him up, highly recommend his approach. I will be using it if I ever lead people again.
So true. So true. Yeah. And the communication piece, I think having a channel to go, have a question about that and feeling safe to ask as well. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a fundamental point about fairness in it as well, because if you're trying to hold someone accountable for an expectation you had that they didn't know about, that doesn't seem fair, does it? And yet every workplace probably does exactly that. Not every workplace, a lot of workplaces. Okay, I think we ended up doing best and worst, didn't we, pretty much? Anyone else got a best they want to do? Kierney's obviously is James and Kelly.
Yes.
That's clear.
Enough said.
Yeah.
I will just quickly say before we move on, though, I think for James and I, particularly being a husband and wife, working together, doing it, being together 24/7, I think there is a lot to be said of leading a business together, and for us having equal qualities but in different places. I think that's huge, and that really is a testament to the success of what we've built. And if it wasn't for the way our personalities match so well, I don't think it would be as successful as it is. So, and it does make me always remember, I never feel like I'm working on my own. I don't. I always feel like, I'm up here, normally he's downstairs, and we very rarely see each other during the day. But knowing that you've got somebody else there that can pick up on your gaps, and that's probably where their strengths are. I think that's really nice. James might hate it, but I think that's nice.
No, I love that. I talk about this in the context of Star Trek quite a lot. So I kind of think that there shouldn't be a single top leader, whatever you want to call it. I've seen that go horribly wrong, because if you get the wrong person in that seat, it ruins the business really quickly. Yeah. So I use Star Trek as an example, like particularly the original series where they had that sort of triumvirate at the top of like Kirk and Spock and McCoy, where they all played to each other's strengths and weaknesses. And there was that collective decision making. You see it in the other series as well, like Picard, he had a more than three. He had his whole bridge crew basically, but he was always running the ideas past people. And yeah, so I really like that concept of distributed decision making almost, but allowing or having that multiple minds, like two heads are better than one, aren't they? But bouncing those ideas off, not having all the decisions have to sit on one person's shoulders.
Yeah, different perspective.
I'm just laughing because there's two people on this call nodding away to you that collectively have watched 0 episodes of Star Trek between them.
I had
And
that sense, but
those
I was
two
going to let it
people
go.
are not me, by the way.
Obviously.
These are also...
Obviously.
Kelly's not even seen a Star Wars film.
God.
Not one.
No.
Can you?
Or Friends, to be fair. So it's not just the spaceship stuff. No, I've not seen. I just don't like I like to buck the trend.
Star Space Trek Wars.
Yes.
I'd watch that crossover, to be honest. Sad as that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so a bit of an off-the-cuff variation question. Has anyone got a story of their best experience of being led that they would like to share? You can say no, because this is unprepared question. This one.
I've got one because I nearly said it earlier. I worked briefly during that period when I was very unhappy working for myself, and when they opened the Apple store in Southampton before iPods. No, iPods were around, pre-iPad, iPhone, and I went and worked there part-time. I did a day and a half a week. It was brilliant, right? Because I was one of the few people that used Macs in my business, so I had a really good grounding of knowledge. And it was just a playground. Like, there was no sales targets. It was all service driven, like service outcomes. Like, don't sue me, Apple, but you don't operate like that anymore. It is a box shifter now. But back then it was all about the innovation. I was there when they launched the iPhone, iPad. It was cool. But the guy that ran the shop, Rob, he did nothing that you would expect a manager to do, right? And I mean that in the best possible sense. What I remember vividly in like the bit behind the shop where you went up to the staff room, I can remember him in there often with a tin of paint. This is Apple, right? The desks cost like 250 grand or something. And Rob's out there, the manager of this store, touching up the paintwork that had got marked. And all he would say to me, every conversation I had with him was a variation on this. How you doing, mate? All right? You doing good? And he meant it, and he wanted to know how I was doing. I was a part-timer. I was there for a day and a half a week. And he'd say to me every single time we spoke, what do you need? What can I do for you that's going to help you to be better? I was good at selling one of the services back then that was called .Mac. If anyone remembers that became iCloud. And I used to demo the syncing across calendars on your phone and on a desktop, and everyone went, wow, look, isn't that cool? But he'd say to me, what can I do to help you to be better? And that was it. That was the end of his involvement with me. And if I'd say nothing, great. If I said anything, he would go away and he'd come back to me with whether he could do it or he couldn't do it. So he didn't just forget it. It wasn't a platitude. And as far as I know, he just did that for everyone in that store. What can I do to help you to be better at your job? That is probably the best kind of leadership I've encountered.
100%. Yeah. It's the attention to detail. It's the small things. It's the daily interactions, the individuals. Again, ticking all the boxes. Brilliant.
It is the small stuff.
I think he ended up going and running the Sydney Apple store.
Oh, nice.
I think you got Rob Jones. Of course, you'd watch the show, Rob. So thanks.
Yeah. I mean, isn't
Thanks
everyone in the world? Pretty sure. Yeah.
You talking about that, James, I can always remember when I worked for Thomas Cook in the stores 20 years ago or whenever that would have been. I had a manager there who was quite a typical, he used to sit in his office and read the paper, and everybody used to get annoyed with him, and all the other employees would be like, he's in the bloody office. And I used to think, but he's made his way to manager. If he can sit in his office and read the paper for a little bit, I don't really mind because he's not on my case. We're doing what we need to do. As long as everything gets done, I'm okay with that. But he would always say thank you at the end of the day to everyone individually. And if he had to leave for some reason, or if you left early, he'd message you and say thank you. And I always remember that because I just think, it was wallpaper at the end of the day, probably back then, because he just did it as a matter of course and we didn't really think too much of it. But all those years later, I do still remember that, and I do have that in the back of my mind to make sure you're telling people thank you. It's so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, it's those small moments, isn't it? But gratitude is a huge leadership
Yeah.
behavior, I think. I mean, that can make a real difference, especially if you want people to like working for you.
That feels quite, I mean, even in my example, it's almost hands-off management, isn't it? It's like, I'm there if you need me, but if I'm not needed, I'll keep myself busy, but I'm not going to interfere because there's nothing to interfere with. I bet, David, there's like a technical term for that style of management, isn't there? And leadership, which is called, David Hatch, go.
Leadership. Good leadership.
Good leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's been defined exactly, but I think it's the opposite of micromanagement, isn't it? And it can be one of the most difficult things to do as a leader, because you want to, either because you're controlling or because you're trying to help, you want to go and like, I'll do it, or let me show you how to do it, that sort of thing. Whereas sometimes you just need to hands off, sit back, let people make the mistakes and learn the lessons, and just be there to support them through that either way. But it's really difficult to do that. That is a real skill, and it takes a lot of practice, I think, to do it well.
I think we should coin that macro management.
Yeah, someone probably has. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's just trust, isn't it? Trust in the relationships that you have with your employees, and having that channel that if there is a problem, it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you want to nail it to a theory, it's a component in a lot of the modern approaches like authentic leadership, transformational, those sort of newer approaches, servant leadership even. I don't know if that alone has its own buzzword. I try and avoid buzzwords as a rule. Make my head hurt. Okay. This question is the one I'm most intrigued to hear the answers to. What are the biggest things you wish you had known before you became a leader or manager?
Who's going first?
I think it's
Well,
Kelly's
I'll tell
turn.
you, when I'm a leader or a manager.
It's my, I knew it was going to be
We've
we did
covered
talk
this,
about
James.
this,
You
didn't we?
definitely are. We've covered this.
You are definitely a leader.
Nice try, though.
I think for me, it's properly sorting myself out before I go in and try and lead and manage other people. I think it's really easy to see what you do, enjoy what you do, be passionate about what you do, but then having to go and lead people that are never going to be as passionate about that thing you're passionate about, because it's not their business. Whether that's an employee or, in our circumstance, franchise owners, it's almost having to adjust yourself to understand what is good enough. Because if you're waiting for those people to be an equivalent of you, you'll wait forever. Yeah. You'll meet the odd one or two, and I'm very lucky. I've got a handful of them, and I am very lucky, but I almost feel they are the exception. They are not the rule. Okay. So what's good enough in that space, and how are you going to be at peace with yourself to understand what that level is and support people in that space? Because you run a losing battle if you don't come to grips with that. And I think if I'd have had my chance again, I would have probably made sure I had all of that foundational work in place first before I took people on, because I feel like I wasted time trying to get them up to my, I don't want to say up to my standard because it sounds like I'm blowing my trumpet, but doing things the way I want to do them or how I would expect them to be done. And then it took me probably 6 months to realise, but they don't have to do it that way, because it works really well at 98% or 90% or whatever it is that person's giving. So I think doing that work on yourself to understand what your expectations of those people really are, and that changes from individual to individual.
And I think we've fallen into this trap before because we're people, and there's a naivety into thinking, right, we have this thing, don't we, Kelly? Like, we can tell the people that appear on one of our Zoom calls within 5 seconds, we know the ones that are really going to do brilliantly at ONLE because they're engaged, they're smiling, they're acknowledging. A lot of people are still a little bit half in, half out. But I think we've made the mistake in the past because we've got on with people, we think they think like us and we think they've got the same values. I think what I would do now, if we were looking, for example, to fully employ someone, I want to know the answer to this question. I don't know how to do this, by the way. You've probably got a methodology, but like one of the things that I've realized is an immutable for us is if you do something wrong, just own it. Say that you did it wrong and just say, and there's not going to be any blame. We've never pointed the finger or got cross. Right, that went wrong. You don't have to tell me why, because you're a human being. It went wrong. What are we going to do to put it right? But the one thing that on the flip side that we really struggle with is when people like hide behind a process or make out that it's not their fault. Because the problem is, you don't know what can you believe about that person. Do you know what I mean? Because I've never met anyone that never made a mistake. So if you never own up to a mistake, what else are you not saying? Mm-hmm. So I think it's probably just around that, isn't it, Kelly, about finding people that not only, they're on our wavelength. Wavelength is not always enough to discern whether they are the right people to work with. I mean, we're lucky, Kierney, aren't we? Because I think we've got the same sort of values, haven't we?
Completely. Yeah, no, definitely. I think we're unusual in that space. I think we're lucky that we have that as a team. My answer to that, well, it sounds like we're pretty much all on the same page. The way I would probably articulate it is that perfection isn't real, doesn't exist, and isn't even necessary. It's basically what you said, wasn't it? But yeah, not expecting things to be done exactly as you do them, but also trusting that if you've given something to someone that it's going to get done. You don't need to micromanage. You don't need to check up on it. You don't need a progress report. You just need to trust that it's going to get done. And if it's not going to get done, that is going to come back to you and it's going to be done by someone else. I think that's quite a good lesson, but we touched on it before, so I won't go back over it too much, but I don't think I appreciated how differently people think, communicate, work, prioritize. That's people are people. People are very unique. And I think that's probably been the most interesting. But that's the joy of leadership, I would say, having those different quirks and supporting people in different spaces. But it's a lot. It is a lot.
Definitely.
I think I'd probably go so far as to say that taking people on board now, I think you two would agree, I probably before would have gone, it's got to be 50-50 personality and ability. Mm-hmm. I'd probably say now it's 75% personality, if not more, 20-25% ability, because I can teach you that stuff. I can't teach you the personality bit. And I think that's changed massively for me. And that's been a real eye-opener in the leadership space.
Oh, the doorbell's rung.
We'll pause there for a musical interlude.
Sorry about that, David.
That's okay, no worries. That's what editing is for. Yeah, so I think, you're all right, obviously. I think there's a lot of challenges around this. Like the big lessons I see that new and first-time leaders hit, there's themes there that come up, like the micromanagement piece and about trying to look at it more as the outcome rather than the method. Like as long as the outcome is what the business needs, it kind of doesn't matter. As a manager, I don't really care how they get there. Within reason. Yeah. And obviously it will depend on what your business does, what the job is, whether you want them to use AI to do everything or not these days. That's a concern as well that you've got to be thinking about, I think. But ultimately, as long as the job is being done, that they're doing it in good faith and that they are relatively happy with the work as well, I think that's quite an important aspect too. Just because it's the right thing to do and because we're people, but also in a bit more mercenary mindset, it tends to result in better outcomes too. Because happy people are more productive. They do better work. They care more. The adjustment of just because they haven't done it the same way as you would do it doesn't mean it's the wrong way. That's, I think, one of the biggest lessons I learned early on and really struggled with. Because, I spent, same as you, I wasted so many months, probably years, when I was managing my first team, trying to make sure they were doing it exactly the way I used to do it, all the same steps, the same handwriting, frankly, not good enough, copy mine. And it was pointless, utterly pointless. Because once I relaxed that a little bit, one of them said, what if we did it this way and it will save half the time and then we can do twice as many? But if you don't let them have that freedom to explore concepts and innovate, then you're never you never get those answers and your business suffers. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll get off my soapbox now. Lovely. Well, time has flown. Thank you for the musical interlude as well. It's always good fun. We've got one question left. This is my favourite one. Everyone knows it's my favourite one by now. It's called Leadership Heroes.
Leadership Heroes.
So if you each had to pick one person, but it can be literally anyone you can think of. So they could be alive or dead or past or present or probably not future. That'd be a bit difficult, wouldn't it? But real or fictitious perhaps as well. But someone who, in your opinion, perfectly embodies leadership. Who is that going to be for each of you and why? Because you've got to justify it.
I'm going at the end.
Okay. James, do you want to go first?
So I worked when I was a journalist, there was a guy called Greg Gianforte. I'm saying that name quite clearly because you might want to look this up at the end because you'll go, honestly, really? He ran a software company called Right Move Technology. So they were quite on the vanguard of like knowledge base and like natural language search for knowledge base because I was in the customer service space. Greg, he was American guy, used to come over to London, used to take me to all these lovely restaurants. I've been to like Mandolin Oriental when Heston was there and like Claridge's. But I tell you what, I was a journalist on a minor magazine. And of course he wanted to curry a little bit of favour. That was the whole PR thing that you did. You met up with the journalists, you wanted them on side so they'd write favourable stuff about you. But he was really interested in me. He really cared. He was either the greatest sort of actor in the history of the world, but I don't think you can fake that. He was just a nice guy and he treated me as someone, he's running a multi-million-pound business and he gave me time. He cared about where my career was going in a way that I never really encountered. And I always had a really nice time. I always felt like he was a bit of a, he was on a pedestal for me. Well, the conclusion to that story, quite beautifully, two things happened. Greg ended up selling Right Move Technologies to Oracle. I meant to look this up before, and someone could look this up. I think it was something like 4 billion. And he made some serious money. And I looked him up after talking about him the last time. And if anyone's been watching Yellowstone, because that's been quite a thing for a while, he's now ended up, because I knew where he was from. He was from Montana, because he always used to say, you should come over, I'll fly you out. I never did. You want to see Montana, it's an amazing place. He is now the governor of Montana, which is basically Kevin Costner in Yellowstone. And that is Greg Gianforte. But that was such a beautiful lesson in, again, treat people with respect, irrespective of their level or perceived value to you. He had all the time in the world for me, and he went on to these amazing things, and he was already at a high level. So, yeah, that was a really good one for me. Beat that, Kelly.
I can't, because I've spent all day trying to think of someone, and I could pretend. I can't give you an example, David. Have you ever had anybody say, I can't give you an example?
Yeah, once or twice. I've had a few people refuse on the principle of nobody's perfect.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's that. I just don't, I could give you a cliche, something around, I haven't watched it yet, but something around Gordon Ramsay and the way he's really driven and the way he looks after his people. And you see this at front, but behind he's really hard working. I think he's probably the first person that come to mind. Do I want to kill myself to be a leader like that? No, probably not. I don't honestly think, if you'd have asked me this 5 years ago, I'd have probably had loads of people to reel off. I don't see really good leaders anymore. And actually your example, James, that's from years ago as well, isn't it? I actually can't give you an example of somebody who stands out as a really good leader. I'll have to come back to you on that one.
Oh, it's controversial.
For other than, for one or two strands of things, yes, there's lots of people, but for somebody as a whole round, got it all nailed, no, I can't think of anyone. Sorry, I must try harder.
Okay.
Try harder.
No, that's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. I know what you mean. It's kind of why I steer clear of politicians and famous people as a rule. Partly because next week there'll be a scandal involving whoever I pick. Just inevitably, won't there?
Yeah.
Maybe that's your struggle, Kelly, isn't it? I mean, it always used to be someone like Richard Branson. Steve Jobs was held up as a kind of exemplar of great leadership, these two people. But there has been a lot of negative press about both of those individuals, for example, after that point. So maybe, we've just seen more of a behind the scenes rather than the packaged version. Maybe the good leaders are the ones that we don't hear about. Maybe that's the point, isn't it?
And
because they're quietly running businesses, letting people take the stage, as it were, and they're in the background, and they're not going to court publicity for that very reason.
Yes, I completely agree.
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Particularly because I see humility as quite a key component of being a good leader. So you're not going to be the one putting yourself out in front and saying, look at me all the time. And the ones that do, I think, there's probably, I can't think of an example right now, but there probably are a few who have been reluctantly pushed into that because it made sense for the business and the shareholders insisted or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's a rare example. But both Richard Branson and Steve Jobs have been chosen before. You might like to know.
For me, it might probably be, I don't know, a sporting coach or something. Right. James watches quite a lot of US sports, but, particularly some of the basketball teams. I can only think of JJ Redick for the obvious reasons, but what his leadership style's like, I've no idea. But he looks quite nice.
Who were you thinking of there?
It's so hard to tell with the famous people, isn't it? Like, what are they really like to work for as opposed to the way they're put out there in public.
Out there.
So,
but you think if they're supporting winning teams day in, day out, and those teams are happy and they're winning and they're going out there and they're doing what they need to do, they've obviously got a really good leadership style because the output's there. It's clear to see. So probably a sporting.
Who was the guy that coached the Lakers, James?
What, back in the 80s?
The glasses, yeah.
Pat Riley?
No, I don't think
it was
so.
above him, wasn't he?
Who
the dad.
About?
The dad.
Yeah, he was like the dad figure of
Jeannie's dad.
Oh, Jerry Buss. He was the owner. Or are you talking about Red Auerbach for the Boston Celtics?
I swear it's someone like Peter Johnson's the name that comes to mind or something like that.
Magic Johnson? Jerry West?
No, it's none of those. There's a guy that
cut
coached...
all this nonsense out of... Go on, say it again.
There was a guy that coached, if I could Google, I would be able to find him because he was in the documentary I watched at the weekend. But he's a really good example of someone who had to manage and coach so many different personalities.
Peter Jackson.
That's
Phil Jackson, not Peter Jackson. That's the director of Lord of the Rings. Phil Jackson won 11 rings with 6 with the Bulls and 5 with the Lakers. So he coached Magic, Jordan, and also he coached Kobe and Shaq.
Yes.
And he won 11 rings, 11 championships. Is that who you mean?
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah. That's not my answer, by the way, but he would be a good sort of,
He was quite a good leader. Yeah.
Him.
Okay. All right.
Who's yours then, Kierney?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to completely lower the tone. I'm embarrassed about my answer now that we've gone through all that. I'm going to say Captain America.
Not bad. Yeah.
Because who doesn't love Marvel? But I think his unwavering integrity, he, like we've already talked about, wouldn't ask you to do something that he wouldn't do himself, would always lead from the front, didn't lead with ego, very much led with kindness and with a confidence in his beliefs and really standing for what he believed in and, not necessarily criticizing people for, I'm taking this very seriously, but you know what I'm talking about. But I think all round, as a fictional character, he would be up there for me.
Yeah. The movie version, yes. I think the comic book version lost his way a little bit, but we won't talk about that.
Well, fake fan, because I haven't read the comics.
Yeah, the comic book version of Civil War is a lot darker, I would say. It's really good, but yeah, he does get into a pretty unpleasant situation. Perhaps forgets his morals briefly, but
I'll stick to the film version then.
Yeah, no, but it's 3 very good answers, and I think 3 answers that we've not had before either. We definitely haven't had James's before.
No,
I don't
I'd be
think we've
surprised.
had a couple of sports coaches, but I don't think we've had basketball ones. So I
Phil
think you're safe
Jackson.
as well, Kelly. And we
Yeah.
haven't had Captain America either, I don't think.
Wow. I'm
I
surprised.
might have
take
to
it
check.
you've done your version on the show loads of times.
Yeah, I get asked every time and I change my answer every time just for fun.
Oh,
What is it today?
What is it today? I think today, because we've already talked about it, we'll go with the triumvirate of Kirk, Spock and McCoy from Star Trek. Yeah,
Very good.
because it's already in my brain and I don't have to think, which is always good.
Mhm.
Lovely.
Nice.
So all three of you get bonus points anyway, was what I was trying
Thank
to say.
Take them with pride.
Yeah, well, lovely. So thank you, ONLE people, for being with us today. It's been great to have all three of you in the room at once. This has never happened to me before, I don't think. So it's been refreshing. And also we got to record it as well. So even better. I will ask you one small final question, which is, if anyone in the audience would like to learn more about ONLE Networking and perhaps become a member, where can they go? What are the links, the addresses, etc.?
It is the ONLE.network. Find us on there. You can book yourself on for a visit or find one of us on LinkedIn if you want to have a conversation. We're always up for, direct message us, send us a message, or get hold of you, David, because they'll know you as well and you can give them that experience. You put your hand up.
Oh, so hang on. David's brought us on the show, giving us a chance to promote ourselves, and you've just gone, speak to
I've given
David.
it. I'm delegating. I
don't want to do any work. Give it to David.
Yeah.
Fine.
I only raised my
Yeah.
hand because for new friends that are out there and maybe listening, only with an E, ONLE, not ONLY, which is often confused.
Yes, that's a good
Just wanted to say
clarification. Yeah, well done. Or just check the show notes because I'm going to put the website in there anyway.
There you go,
so
then.
it's very easy to find. Awesome. Well, that's more than we've got time for. It's been a great fun conversation. I hope all three of you have enjoyed it as much as I have. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you,
David.
David.
Good stuff.
Thanks, David.
Well, Kierney, Kelly, James, thank you so much for your time today. What a lovely conversation. We touched on all sorts of great things there. I think there's some brilliant lessons for all the listeners and viewers in the audience to take home, not least of which is it's never too late to start building your network. As they say, as the cliche goes, the best time was yesterday, the second best time is today. So I do encourage everyone in the audience, doesn't have to be ONLE, although I highly recommend them. Find a networking group. If you work in a big company, a big organization, perhaps start building your network internally. If you work on your own, if you work in a small business, if you're a founder or first-time leader, new manager, maybe consider starting to build your network outside of your own organization. And options like ONLE are great for that purpose. They're also incredibly cost-effective. So yes, highly recommend giving their website a visit. That link is in the show notes. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, if you are looking for help with your leadership development, if you've hit some snags on your leadership journey, or you just don't know where to start, do come and visit leadingwithintegrity.co.uk. That's pretty much all I have time for this week. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as the rest of us did. Do join us again next week when my guest will be Mickey Fitch-Collins. We'll be talking about self-efficacy and its role in combating burnout and enhancing your professional development, the impact of AI on the workforce and other challenges faced by new managers, as well as her journey from professional fishing to leader, human skills facilitator, and self-efficacy advocate. Looking forward to that conversation, and I hope you'll be there with us. And until then, as always, stay safe, start building that network, and be a leader, not a boss.